If you're caught up on the legality, just email me at adam@retention.com. If you made it all the way through this podcast and you're still hung up on the legality, I am willing to get on the phone with you personally and explain it all to you.
So this morning I was in Venice. I went to this like Yapo mixer coffee thing. And I was chatting with some folks and retention came up. And like 3 or 4 people in a circle all said the exact same thing. And so let me kind of take what they said and get your feedback on it, because I'd love to know like your kind of retort to this. But they said, I love the idea. I'm terrified of being named in a class action lawsuit because I'm violating the law and all of these terms and services and everything. And for that, I think that's the biggest barrier to where you're otherwise like it's a no-brainer. And we'll get into everything else later on. But like, let's start off with the juice right away.
The reason they're saying that is because an indirect competitor of ours that effectively does something very similar called SafeOpt, and it was like 2 national brands like Jake's Coffee or Pete's Coffee or something, and like one other Everyman Jack or something like that. They were named in a class action lawsuit, and they do what we do. They do identity, and then they actually send 2 emails. So the product doesn't solve the 2 big core problems we solve. We solve email list growth, which they don't do because they're sending the emails and you only get the email if someone buys. And they don't solve the bottom of the funnel, like abandonment, communication, audience expansion problem. But they're an indirect competitor. They're using the same tech and they're enabling it over email. A critical component. So like, if I were a brand, I'd look at that and be like, that's also retention.com. If I do that, I'm going to be Everyman Jack. I'm going to end up on a lawsuit. There's a few important things to realize here. One, that wasn't a suit about email. That was a suit about pixel retargeting. Meta has been sued 100 times about pixel retargeting. Klaviyo has a pixel. I don't know if they've been sued. They probably have. Hotjar has been sued 9 days to Sunday, right? It just so happened that we have this new product in this new industry, and they're doing it too. So it's getting kind of like unfair. It's like, this wasn't a lawsuit about this method of de-anonymizing people and emailing them. It was a lawsuit about specifically not collecting consent to do pixel return. That is a very important part of it. I have highlights of it on my LinkedIn page or whatever. So we're pushing all of our customers to use Cookie Pro. OneTrust is the industry leader in this consent stuff. What Cookie Pro is it's this, except it's the GDPR opt-in thing, right?
Yeah.
If you very conspicuously, preferably on the banner, but you can put it in your terms of service, say these 2 sentences about what we do, which the essence of it is effectively, we will take anonymous identifiers and we will match them to personal identifiable information, in some cases an email, and in some cases we might email you. If that says that, like in the sort of like expand to read what cookies are doing,
sure,
and the consumer hits accept, there is literally not a leg to stand on with a class action lawsuit about this. Another important thing is that this was not a CCPA lawsuit. This is like an age-old wiretapping claim where ambulance chasing lawyers, in my opinion, are seeking a theory to try to figure out who. Two cases of several hundred have made it to court, and that's why so many of them are happening, right?
Yeah.
So like, but even with CCPA, this is not a debate about whether or not you can do this. It's a debate about whether consent is being collected for doing this.
Which you're putting into
we're just encouraging people to do that. I can't make a brand do it, right? It's up to them. They got to go get the software. But like the way that you completely eliminate the risk, and by the way, you're using a bunch of other pixel retargeting anyway. You could already be named in the same lawsuit. This just there is like this false equivalency between what SafeOpt was getting sued for and what we do, because we do the same thing, right? Like but they're getting sued for something that hundreds of other companies do.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think like one of the big issues there, and I think you brought it up here, and I really want to kind of dive into it because, you know, I'm an advisor on some brands and I'm on the board here and I got some equity and some stuff. And the biggest pushback I got from most people across the board was a misunderstanding of how the tech worked. That basically was like, folks were coming in and saying that you were effectively violating the can scan, and that was your tech. And it's like, that's not what it is.
So like, no, I mean, so like the reason that I feel like that's the biggest objection. So this is a blessing and a curse, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I hope to forever operate in an environment that is this poorly understood, because it keeps competitors out. We were able to
100%.
literally get to 20 million ARR before we had a single person doing exactly what we do. Now this guy Go Growbot has like popped up and he's out there trying to undercut us. Fine, have at it, right? It's kind of a compliment, right?
Sure. I mean, hey, look, if you're not getting copy, you're not doing good enough work.
Yeah, the guy literally made a video with like all of my copy in it. I'm like, great. Like,
fair enough. Okay, good for you. Yeah.
Right. Like, make the market more legitimized.
Yeah, just validate what I'm doing.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
But like, it hasn't gotten any venture funding. I doubt that he will either, because this is such a it seems illegal. That's the problem with the Yapo. It feels like you shouldn't be able to do that. But like, here's my retort, right? Think about the brands that are using this today. Warby Parker, True Classic Teas, Bulletproof Coffee, right? Dr. Squash, Penske Media. These people have fucking in-house counsel. Like,
they would armies of in-house counsel.
There's literally no way we could have the list of brands that we had if it was illegal. We couldn't have gotten through these legal departments. Yeah,
you're talking like 6-7-figure monthly legal bills.
Dude, like it is legal, right? That's not the problem. The problem is Nike's not going to do it because they have an ethical position against being impolite about email, right? They don't, or maybe they're GDPR worldwide. You couldn't do it if you're GDPR worldwide either, because GDPR is opt-in for data collection on the internet. That's not what the law says here. You are allowed to do this in the US. Even the state level stuff, there's a federal level CAN spam law that was made in 2003 and reviewed in 2019. It is an opt-out law, period. There is no room for interpretation.
Yeah.
It is opt-out. It says nothing about opt-in anywhere in the law.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. There's a big misunderstanding about that because the email marketing community markets opt-in email and everything else is spam. It's like, well, why aren't we all just spamming each other? It's because Gmail and Hotmail and Yahoo would block you.
Yeah.
We created the perfect email. Someone on your website who we also get signal from in the rest of the email ecosystem, and we pop it into your Klaviyo account, and it goes out instantly. It's the perfect reverse engineered email.
100%.
Everybody would buy lists in e-commerce if they could. They just can't without blowing themselves up. This actually works, right? So like,
and to be fair, there are entire black markets of like the emails, people just violating it anyway.
But it's fucking dangerous.
48,000 shop of like brand owners as an email, just like, hey buddy, here's a list. Like I didn't even buy it. It was just like from a friend. And I was like, I can't touch. It's like, thank you.
So by the way, I think a few things are happening. One, that SafeOpt lawsuit slowed us down entirely. Two, we're like crossing the chasm in Shopify from very risk-loving and early adopters to much more conservative people. So I'm not surprised that the people that aren't using it are holding on to these, it's like, they're not really interested in understanding the nuances of the law.
Yeah.
They just want a reason to say no. Like the early adopters were excited about this possibility. Like they understood the value immediately. And they were just like, I also understand that this is legal. And like, look, if an ambulance chasing class, there's just so much to say to that. It's like, think about the brands that were named in the lawsuit. It's not Joe Schmo's underwear socks.com. It's Pete's fucking coffee. It's like somebody that everybody knows, right? Like if everybody doesn't know your brand, and I mean everybody, you're not going to get named in a class action lawsuit for anything.
It's not even worth the time.
Like, exactly. It's like, that's not your biggest problem right now. Your biggest problem is getting your brand to where everybody knows it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, So yeah, that's, look, I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up because it's just going to, sort of change the color of the content that I'm creating on LinkedIn and Twitter a little bit. I'm just going to evangelize some of these points a little harder because I think it's important for people to know, right? It's like what I should be talking about, right?
Yeah, because I'll say this. I think as I see it, being somebody that, hey, look, you guys have helped me. I saw you at Chipper Whale event back when the team was a fraction of the size it is now at the Blue Whale. Like, the inside, the cool kids club of it all. And it's been really interesting that where I see it, there's really three big parts, and I think that this really comes down to the understanding of it all. And I think the first big issue, which we're talking about here, is just the legality of it, right? And I think the other side of it that is really interesting to me is the use cases or the misuse of the tech. I think I can clearly think of 4 or 5 posts I saw on Twitter where clearly somebody used the tech in a way that was
Wrong.
not in line with the best practice.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result, it's like, well, one asshole did this dumb thing. Clearly, all of it is trash. I think there's an idea of it that is fun, right? Like, oh, this is cool. Like, it's nerdy cool. But the role of this in a business and where that fits, and I think that use case is something that I'd love to know how you feel people should be using it.
Part of that was we were like a self-serve tool in October of last year, right? Like they could do whatever they wanted with it. And I'll tell you exactly. So like just for now, there's two products, right? One you put on your homepage. It identifies a person that doesn't fill out a form, and we pass the email address to your newsletter. And that's where it stops. It's up to you to email these people. It's not linked with them making any behavior on the website and triggering flows. The second product is all about actions that these people take and triggering flows, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you use the first product incorrectly, and it can be used incorrectly in several different ways, is you blow your deliverability up. Why? Because these emails have incredibly high positive and quite high negative engagement.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They're polarizing. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and it's not negative engagement to the extent that like, you know, you're just like, this is like Viagra spamming. It's like, you know, 2-3 times the 1 in 1,000 that's acceptable. But you can't send that on its own, right? The reason this works for who it works for, the big Shopify stores, is because what we're doing is we're hiding the negative engagement in the existing mail stream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we actually now we call it the Bruce Boltz integration. Chris Holt came up with this, or Chris Hall. So like they got in a bunch of trouble with Klaviyo because they were going way too hard, and they're like, dude, they're not going to let us use it anymore. What can we do? And how we were instructing people to set this up was just make a welcome series with these contacts. You know, send them 3 emails. If they don't open, unsubscribe them. If they do, put them in your newsletter. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
The engagement statistics of that welcome series look like shit because the unsubscribes and the spam rates are so high that it looks bad. And then people don't actually convert on the welcome series that don't fill out a form, right? Like it takes you a month to warm these people up, right? It's a colder email. Once they can, you know, once you've gotten rid of the chat and once you've got the wheat and gotten rid of the crap, the emails look really good. But like, you just need to get through a filtration process. What we require, which is a result of the Bruce Boltz, and we actually call it the Bruce Boltz implementation, is instead of sending the welcome series first, we actually hold the contacts in a segment, mix them in with a newsletter, send them in a batch with the existing newsletter, which is incredibly low negative engagement. All the complaints and unsubs fall out against that newsletter.
Yeah.
Then we put them in a welcome series.
So it's like I've got a newsletter of 10,000. I got a newsletter of 10,000 subs. I mean, these aren't real numbers, but I got a newsletter of 10,000 subs. I'm dropping in 500 new people.
Yes, exactly.
And like
exactly.
20% of them are stoked on it. I don't care about the negative because
because it doesn't change the metrics of that newsletter materially. Surprisingly, once you wash out those negative engagers, what remains is a very similar quality to your existing list.
Yeah, and that's
which is crazy to think about. Yeah, right. So when you think about it that way, why wouldn't you want 10 times more people on your list? 100%. You fucking would.
Yeah.
Right? Like you 1,000% would. Like
the analogy that I like to make with it is like, I see so many folks that, like, as a paid media guy, I look at it as the difference in intent and conversion on like a branded search Google campaign.
Yep.
Versus like a prospecting Facebook ad.
Yeah.
Like the impression count to like actual meaningful conversion. That ratio on a prospecting Facebook ads is terrible. Yeah. But it's what ultimately grows the business above and beyond. You're prospecting with it. So the exchange rate isn't going to be nearly the same. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And the people that do come through are, like you're saying, very competitive in their value in the business. And I think that that's, you know, especially because you're not necessarily doing the spin the wheel for 20% off. Like there might even be of greater value because you're not devaluing the brand.
Look, anybody who's been a long-term customer will tell you the enormous value of this top of funnel strategy. So I was having, do you know this guy named Gareth Lancome? He's got like
It sounds super familiar.
Rockwell Razors is one of his brands.
Okay,
He's
yeah.
Like helped out Loom with it, like a scientist with this shit. Like,
yeah.
So he's advising a lot of people out. And basically, so he's saying one interesting thing. He's like, I'm trying to get everybody to look at marketing efficiency ratios rather than just, attribution. He's like getting their heads out of Triple Whale and North Beam and like trying to look at this MER.
Yeah.
And he's like, I talked to him for the first time last fall. And he's like, when you were describing this to me, I understood the value immediately. But he's like, I think you were describing the logic well, but I felt like you weren't describing the value of the email well.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I had this feeling really early on where I was, and by the way, like I look at Diff Eyewear, who's been a customer for 2 years. They've made $4.5 million on our fucking emails. They probably paid us $150,000, right? Like it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
but like we're putting our balls in the blender because we're like, hey, 12-month deal with a 60-day out. If we haven't showed you ROI in 60 days, and the nature of what's happening is we're selling people emails that are converting over 2 years, and we're putting ourselves on a 60-day ROI like burden or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's this window to proof.
Yeah, so like he's like, here's how I think you need to be looking at this, and I think he's right because like I have a SaaS business, and this is the way you look at SaaS businesses. He's like, brands do not know the value of an email address. He's like, if you could go into their Klaviyo account and tell them what the average revenue over what period of time an email address was, then subtract their gross margin. That is the profitability of owning an email address to them.
Oh, yeah. Then so many brands I talk to don't even know how to factor that.
Then if you could go across your entire system and see what the discount for your lower quality email address is, you could go and say, look, an email address is worth $1.60 to you. Your gross margin is 30%. So we're down to $1.25 or whatever, $1.20. Our emails are 25% less effective than that for these 5 reasons, right? Then you're down to 90 cents, right? Of pure profit for an email that we're going to give you. I'm going to sell you those for 8 cents and they're going to convert over a year and a half. It's like, of course you would do that. And then we would be out of this 60-day, you know what I mean? It's like, nobody is thinking about these emails in terms of that. And by the way, I don't even think that that's the true value of it. I think the value of being able to send to a list of people every week or every day or every 3 times a week, that's 5 times the size of what it would have been had you not used our tech for a year and a half, has this indescribable and unknowable brand effect.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can't actually measure it because it ultimately changes your marketing mix, which is the third thing I wanted to come to with is, now we've covered the lawsuit side. So, okay, I'm feeling better about it. Got it.
And by the way, like, I don't expect people to just flip on that one in a day. Oh, of course. Right? But like, I encourage you to look at the facts. Like, read part of that lawsuit. It's not about emailing people.
I think you and I are highly logical individuals, but we talk to folks, operate on upper values, and look, I get it. Like, there's in the world of like, I just finished reading, Rocket Fuel. There's the visionary and the integrator. If you look at the the E-Myth, right? It's different parts of businesses, right? Some folks are just not everybody can take the path until they see it from soup to nuts. And it's interesting. Yeah. I was having a conversation with folks from Tapcart because I feel like they have a very similar issue in that there's a use case problem where they're not introducing the entire thing as sort of the sales pitch. And I've been talking to them about that. And I think, they're getting more and more adoption. That's neither here nor there. Just, I think it's similar.